land of hope and glory.
As I said earlier, what can we do to change matters? Are you sick of looking over your shoulder? Are you frightened of what you say? There's an old saying, you know, when good people say nothing, the wicked prosper. Don't be intimidated. When the masses speak, the government trembles. And sadly, the vast majority of people of these islands have said nothing and just stewed in silence. So what can you do? Well, phone the TV stations. Phone them all. Now and again, whenever, once a day. If everybody did that who feel aggrieved, can you imagine the impact that would have? Phone the newspapers. Tell them what you think. I've done that. And you will be surprised the consistency of these people in the media when you speak about your feelings with reason. How they cut you short or put the phone down or even threaten or intimidate you, proving how free we are. It is a joke. I confronted one of my local councillors, and she, when I finished with her, she became disturbed and afraid because all I spoke to her was the truth, and she didn't like that. So you can do the same. Remember, most of the media has been infiltrated by the Labour Party, and they have put positions into power there, individuals who will cut you short, but don't let that dismay you or put you off. These political correct fanatics, these so-called do-gooders, everybody can see how intolerable life has become because of these idiots in power, and they are taking more and more liberties with our freedoms, intimidating us, threatening us, calling us white trash, racist and fascists if we say anything that's out of order according to what they determine is right or wrong. Do not be intimidated by these people. It's our turn to voice what we want. It's our turn to speak up. There's nothing the matter with being racist. Take note, most of the racist riots that have taken place in this country have been between Asians and blacks. So who are the racists? Who are the ones that kicked the white man out of Africa? Who are the ones that kicked the white man out of Asia? Who are the ones that kicked the white man out of Arabia? They certainly don't want us there. We are only there by force of arms. Otherwise they would kick us out, as you well know. And I can understand that. As I can understand the Africans and the Asians doing it. Am I a racist because I don't want these people here? As I see the damage they're doing to our way of life and everything we've stand for and what our forefathers fought for? Can you imagine those individuals at Dunkirk and D-Day, if they could see what's happened to these islands of ours? Can you see how they would feel? No, there's nothing the matter with wanting to stand up for your way of life and your principles and the way of life that has come about by centuries of cultivation of the mixture of these four peoples, basic peoples that have made these islands what they are: the English, Irish, Scotch and Welsh. And when you contrast that to London, where there's 170 languages spoken in London, there wasn't that many at the Tower of Babel, and that fell apart, disintegrated. And we can see what's taking place in this country. Just with one people alone, the Muslims, that one body of people who have established themselves in these islands. Look at the chaos they have caused. They turn around and say it's only a few. We know that to be different. We see them taking over towns and cities establishing themselves in local government, creating areas where it's solely Muslims, with over 3,000 mosques in the country, ever increasing their authority and influence. We see them in local council, we see them as mayors, we see them in parliament. Would you like to live under Muslim law, or as they would call it, Shia law? Would you like that? Well, if you wouldn't, you're a racist because you're prejudiced. Well, I wouldn't either, and I know there's millions of others wouldn't. But that's what could possibly happen if we do nothing and say nothing. But for us to speak up, we are a racist. But for them to speak up, it is their religious right. So we are looked upon as white trash, and yet they are the ones who are turning our country through terrorism and all these other activities into islands of fear. Look at what you have to do when you go to an airport. Look at what you have to do where you go anywhere in this country with the cameras and everything else. It is making life more and more unbearable by the day. And as we watch the TV each day, we just see another avenue of our way of life being torn apart. So if you don't want to live under Shia law, obviously you wouldn't want to live under a black government either. Does that make you a racist also? When I look at the African countries, or rather the African continent, and keep in mind they do not have a country, they have a continent. And from north to south and east to west, it is a sewer of chaos, of AIDS, tuberculosis, of civil strife, of corruption. They are a menace. Even in their own lands they have demonstrated their incompetence. If people want to help them, go over there and help them. I'm not against that. But don't bring them into my backyard. I have a right to decide if I do not want certain individuals in my backyard. And I have seen by their behavior and their conduct over many, many years, not just in their own country. And interestingly, most Africans do not want to live in Africa. They're all trying to get out. And where they're heading? To white man's territory. To us white trash, white honkies as some of them call us. Outrageous. We see what they've done in America. The ghettos there, the fragmentation of society over there. Not just them alone, but other communities too. And why is that? Because people choose to be with their own kind. And I can understand that. So does that make an individual a racist because he wants that? If you ever go abroad and work, you'll always find the Brits together. It's understandable. And why? Because we have things in common. That's why we don't mix. You'll get the few who do, but the vast majority stick with their own kind. That's why when you look at a map of the world, what do you see? There's Africa filled with Africans, Asia filled with Asians, Arabia filled with Arabs, the Orient filled with Orientals. People have decided themselves, as history has shown, that they have collected together into these unique groups which are clearly identified on the map of the world, where people have felt happy with their own kind and have set up and come and brought about nation states such as Spain, Portugal. We see Sweden, Finland, Germany, Austria, filled with the people who feel comfortable, as you and I do with our own kind.